All right, folks, here we go. Yes. A lot of bring it. We're in store, and then we're also going to be live. Yes, we are. So, hi there, Janet Dwyer. There's Lynn Miller. So, folks, we're going to be starting in just 5 minutes. We begin. We are doing our segment politics this week, but also the latest with this developing story out of Newport that is seemingly getting worse by the minute. And I hate saying that, but I am also. It's amazing. I'm hearing from parents. I'm hearing from former players. There's so much about this that is just hi there, Jillian. So many disturbing facets of this story, and some of the things that I'm being sent. You don't understand Black culture. Apparently, I don't. I guess not. I've never heard of that one. So this goes. I mean, the allegations, and again, we're going to be starting in 4 minutes. But we're going to start off with our segment, politics this week with Justin Katz. But you're right. I don't understand this business that they were. Number one, it certainly sounds like it is. Oh, good. Rodgers says we're ready to go. Non-consensual. Number one. Number two, this business of you don't understand Black culture. And one mother said, you got to realize. That her son was telling her that all the teachers at Rodgers are like heavy-set white females that are constantly preaching to the kids. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to be gay. But and I believe that, but this is something entirely different than that. But I think that's interesting. If almost like they've created a monster with if and again, I to me none of it's justified. I find the whole thing very disturbing, to say the least. That's right. Well, you don't understand Black culture. You're racist. Well, I don't know. I'm racist because I don't think they should be. And again, we're going to when we're on the radio in 3 minutes, I'm not going to use this language, but somehow this business that it's just locker room where they're thrusting themselves. And for Roger, I'm not going to use this language on the radio, but they're humping up against these special needs students in order to ejaculate. The one parent described for me the Rodgers locker room. They are pleasuring themselves in the shower, by the lockers. She claims, the kid's on his knees and that they were using these kids to pleasure them. And the reason he's slapping them with the belt like that is the kid wasn't doing it right or used teeth or something in him. Right now, they're just saying they assaulted. But, and I also want to point out, this is all alleged. These are all just allegations. Apparently, the is going on. I know. Yeah, that was one of you understand the Black culture. Someone now, when we'll talk about this. First, we're going to talk to Justin, and then we're going to we'll go into this a little bit more. Now, coming up tonight at 7, we're going to talk to. He's running for mayor of Providence. He's the Michael English, convicted sex offender, who wants to be Democrat now, mayor of Providence. We're going to interview him tonight at 7, and then we're going to talk about Rodgers. This whole business of the coaches. I'm just there for the X's and O's, and I don't know what goes on in the locker room. Well, you need to know what's going on in the locker room. You know what else? I am unfamiliar with the term. They kept sending me messages. Well, sometimes, after practice, before a game, you're nervous, and, they just need to bust a nut. And you have to look it up. It's slang for that they. Anyhow, you can look it up yourself. Yes. So I want to be very clear. Yeah. I want to be very clear though. These are allegations. The videos are very disturbing. All right, folks, we are going to begin at 106 or thereabouts. Yes, right now on this Monday, November 24th, short week of Thanksgiving. We will not be on Thursday. And then Friday, let's see what news develops. Well, all you need to know is normal schedule today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and then obviously off. And then we'll see on Friday. But this portion of the program is brought to you by the Kauai Sit-In. We had a wonderful time there. I was there over the weekend. By the way, the Kauai Sit-In was packed on Saturday. My goodness, we had a nice command center luncheon. And there's normally a room that we sit in the front. They had 50 people there. We were looking at a collation lunch, all the people coming in from the funeral. They had 3 different groups during the course of the time. We had a nice time by the window, and then off to the side, they had another group of like 45 people. So Kauai Sit-In was rocking on Saturday. Well, busy, I should say. I mean, the people coming from the funeral wasn't exactly rocking, but nevertheless, we had a great luncheon with the command center, the Kauai Sit-In. Now, Thanksgiving, maybe you're looking for a great place. People want to get together, a little reunion. Perfect at the Kauai Sit-In. They can handle large groups, obviously. They can handle 50 people. They can handle 100 people. There were 75 people for the funeral, the collation lunch after the funeral, excuse me. No, they don't hold funerals there. The Kauai Sit-In, plenty of free parking, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Park. They also have the great coffee shop there now. It was so great to see that they are thriving. Now, again, we are going to check out DePietro.com. DePietro.com. We have another update coming on this. It is disturbing, but I'm going to touch on the Rodgers story because I know right now people would be like, what's going on with the... We will get to that. We will get to that after we talk to Justin for politics this week. And then we're going to go a little more long form tonight. I have some people, I think they're going to come on. I don't know. But, so much of it, one of the parents is trying to, say you got in that all teachers at Rodgers, and they're always telling these young guys, it's okay to experiment if you want to experiment, physically with another male and stuff like that. But the problem is, number one, I don't think children in high school, I don't think they should be doing that, number one. Number two, I don't think the progressives, and I know Newport, a lot of people think of Newport as the mansions. Newport's actually very poor. You do have the mansions, right? But their kids, some of the people, they go to private schools. You have St. George's down there. Then you also have Portsmouth Abbey and so forth. But Newport's actually it's rich and poor, and there's a lot of poor. But no, I don't think the progressives, you have that Dawn Hoyer from Newport, she's going to be running for Attorney General. This notion of, as this one mother described, that they're constantly being told, it's okay to experiment if you want to experiment with guys and other boys and stuff like that. I don't think that's healthy, number one. Number two, I don't think they should be telling them that. I don't think high school is a time that they're still trying to formulate and get a sense of who they are. So this business of encouraging them to experiment, I don't think that's positive. And then look at the end result. Now they're allegedly sexually assaulting special needs boys. So it's just such a mess. But folks, I want to remind you also, happy Thanksgiving to everyone from Propane Plus, Rhode Island and Massachusetts. You can depend on Propane Plus. Call them 401-885-4209. Heating, cooling, residential, commercial. You can depend on Propane Plus, 508-252-3359. So we're going to talk to Justin. Some of the messages, you just don't understand Black culture. I guess you're right. You're right. Guilty. I don't. No, that doesn't seem the direction that things should be going. We will talk about that, and then we'll talk about it tonight. But let's start off. The big story that still, it came down on Friday, and then he's going to be returning to the classroom, is this Barrington. To me, there's something wrong in the public schools, whether it's Rodgers, whether it's Smithfield, obviously in Barrington with the teacher, they're letting him back. And the teachers union, it's so important to preserve his freedom of speech. All right, folks, it's time for our segment, and it is politics this week. And joining us, he is the managing editor at anchorrising.com. It is Justin Katz. And Justin, let's start off. Good afternoon. Let's start off with this Barrington teacher who is going to be coming back. There's a lot of different elements to this. You and I have followed and tracked these types of stories. I thought it was interesting with the school committee basically saying that the union was threatening that they would drown them in legal bills. But he is going to be returning to the classroom after. What else could be described as just like a paid leave vacation? What's some of your initial thoughts on Barrington teacher Ben Philo, who's going to be returning to the classroom?
Well, I think you put your finger on the key point is the unions are threatening to overwhelm this district with lawsuits. And that's what really goes to how they manipulate things. You know, it's not lost on me. Some people I saw online were commenting on the school committee's statement, made it sound like the school was being made pawns by people on the left and the right. To the extent there's anybody on the right, they might have in mind somebody like Nicole Solis, who was putting in APRA requests for Philo's classes and materials. But in her case, the union sued.
Yes.
The union sued her when she was asking for things in South Kingstown. And so I think that shows you how they're manipulating things. The school committees in Rhode Island are not afraid that angry parents are going to mount lawsuits, go against them, start personal law. They threaten personal lawsuits against the committee members, apparently. They're not afraid of that. They're afraid of the unions coming up and saying, it doesn't matter. You did an investigative report with an attorney, and he found, yes, you can get rid of Philo. You did violate policies, but we're going to sue you constantly if you don't. And that's a real problem, especially because it's so far left wing. One thing I wrote about on Anchor Rising, the investigation from Oliveira attorney who did the reporting on it, dug into it, and he cited a case out of West Virginia where a teacher was let go for social media posts. In that case, she was a conservative Republican, and there's no mention, I couldn't find any mention of her union backing her up in that same kind of way. And so this is what happens. They are left-wing organizations, these unions. They come in and they further left-wing causes, and Barrington students and parents are going to have to suffer for it now. John, are you there?
You know what else, Chuck? The union put out a statement, it's so important to protect teachers' freedom of speech. You and I both know this isn't a matter of freedom of speech. This is proper speech. They do have a code of conduct. And to somehow try to argue, that's a false argument to me. And the media, of course, goes along with that. But this business of this is whether or not it was appropriate speech. And to me, teachers fall into the category that you and I have discussed, which is whether it's a teacher or a police officer or, a doctor or an attorney, but they're happy to defend, quote, he has the right, freedom of speech. You can't silence that. But you and I both know, Justin, that if after school on his own hours, if he was making videos that he was attacking the Democrat Party, if he was saying anti-Semitic remarks, if he was telling inappropriate racial jokes and posting videos, I mean, it's not, of course that would not be tolerated. So, but I get the sense that they kind of had been successful in trying to argue that that's what this was about.
Well, yeah, that's what they're going to claim. But to me, I mean, first of all, he teaches high school social studies, which is kind of an inherently subjective class with a lot of touches on a lot of beliefs and personalities. And so it's kind of a sensitive situation. And then it's, what really struck me in this report, his big defense was he was just set off by the hypocrisy of people who were grieving the murder of Charlie Kirk. This wasn't, set off by a war that started or a riot. He was angry that people were grieving a particular person, and that's what set him off. This is not that. It's not a matter of free speech to me in that case. It's a matter of somebody who has responsibility, direct in association with children on a sensitive subject matter, and he can't control himself. In fact, he comes back. He took that video off, the one that got him into biggest trouble. Took it offline quickly, but went back later and did another one where he rants and raves about Charlie Kirk's not in heaven and you people are hypocrites and I want you to think about that. And you can really tell, you can imagine him in a classroom with that attitude towards students. And I think that's an indication this isn't freedom of speech. It's whether he can do the job. And one other thing on the union front, it turns out the acting superintendent at the time, in report, nice little revelation, just almost like a footnote. He knew him very well because they were co-presidents of the local labor union when he wasn't a principal at the high school. The one administrator interviewed for the report, and so I think that's again what you're seeing here is it's a clubby labor union, and so they're just going to ignore that this guy can't control himself and is out there. It's not just social media; it's what he was saying and the fact that it bears directly on what he's supposed to be doing professionally.
You know what else, Justin? I was very happy. For those that read the investigative report, I was happy to learn they used me posting the videos, which was their investigative tool of how they were judging his videos. You know, right up until then, I think it also speaks volumes. If I had not, posted those videos, the local media, they weren't even naming him. That's and it just speaks volumes to me of still the control that the special interests, specifically the teachers union, how they have over our local media. Not only did they not post the videos, I was the only one that named him. So I think that's, positive for independent media, and that they referenced several times in the report videos that I had posted of his before he hid them and took them down, or he made it so you couldn't really access his account, but they mentioned John DePietro's Facebook page. And Justin, again, I also noticed with the reporting of this, they don't mention that the president of the Senate, Val Lawson, is the head of NEA Rhode Island. But it's just appalling to me that they try to argue, well, it's his own free time and free speech. They open the door. You and I both know if there was some teacher that showed up at at the temple and walked in and said, blank you to the rabbi. Well, freedom of speech. He does have the right to do that, but we wouldn't have someone like that in the classroom. Now, moving on, the other story that really ignited the local media was what happened at the courthouse. I'll admit the timing was very poor, but they had a protest. They're trying to change the rules or regulations where they want that people here illegally and others that they could just deal with the court virtually, that they don't actually have to go inside the courtroom. And while they were doing that, I don't know what happened with ICE. They got some intelligence. They thought someone they were looking for. Turned out the kid was an intern from one of the local Providence schools, I think, that was interning at the court. And it turned into a huge moment for local media, local politicians. And I want to give you a chance to weigh in on that.
Well, it turned into a huge opportunity for them. I mean, this is really the incentives for our local politicians and the news media is to play this stuff up. There's nobody trying to tone down rhetoric around here. It's all ramp up. You almost have to wonder, because we don't have any details, it could entirely be a case that one of these activists called in ICE with a secret tip that there was going to be this person they were looking for in the courthouse, and that's how it got started. We don't know. We don't have the details, but that could be the case. And what we see here is this expression of outrage and the chaos, and ICE has McKee said, not a shred of due process. It's all ridiculous because it's their doing. If you don't want chaos, don't open a border. One, let your local police work with immigration so that they can help them control things. They would have said, all right, we're going after this kid. Let us check him first. Oh, he's an intern. That would have helped there. That sort of thing goes a long way to making sure we don't have this chaos. And what we're getting now is they're going to take this. So we've got people in the country illegally who the local Democrats are trying to prevent from being sent out of the country, even if they're criminals, and they're changing our own due process laws to accommodate them. So now you're going to have virtual hearings, which I don't know if you've participated in any of these. They can be very difficult. They're very distracting, and most of all, they separate so much of what's important about our judicial system. So you're there. There's something to be said for being in a courtroom with the other person, plaintiff, defendant, your lawyers, the judge, everybody there with their moment in court. You have less of that when you start separating people. And let's not forget, very early on in Trump's enforcement of ICE regulations, immigration regulations, you had judges helping illegal immigrants sneak out. And so the detail that one of the judges tried to protect the intern, that does not carry the weight it would have if there weren't already those kinds of examples. And so again, if the Democrats really cared, they'd be saying, let's tone down the rhetoric. Let's ensure due process. That means we're going to cooperate now. But they're not. They don't want that. They want people to be harmed, disrupted, hurt, so that they can run to a camera and tell the news media, this is outrageous. I'm here to defend you against Donald Trump and his policies. That's what they want. And we're all paying for it with not only the agita, but people being held up in court.
Yeah. And you know what, Justin, it shouldn't be lost on people how remarkable it is that they want to make special accommodations to protect. Number one, they're not even supposed to be here, but they want to change the whole way we do it, not for American citizens, but for these individuals. Now, I've heard that judiciary, they're not going to go along with this, but it just shows the efforts of which they are willing to circumvent the law. Let's change the way we do it. We're going to make it so they don't have to go to the courthouse. I mean, I find the whole thing ridiculous. And what we also notice, there was the big thing in Warren, and then that Jason Knight that's running for attorney general, and this scathing thing. And then it turned out that it was someone, and I think we had talked about it, who was wanted. He's from Liberia. He was supposed to be deported in 2009. And you have Kathy Gregg saying he hasn't committed a crime in Rhode Island since 2012. They never come back, obviously, and say, in hindsight, maybe I was too quick to jump the gun. Maybe this isn't someone that should be here. So I noticed that they never come back and revisit it. Now, Justin, there's also a story, I think it actually should have gotten more play, that Rhode Island is ranked 50th in the country. And Joe Powers put out something about this, the GOP chairman, about where the state ranks as far as housing. I don't know enough about it, but I am willing to bet that somehow that the unions and special interest is mixed up in this. And that's why it slows down the development of how they're going to get more affordable housing. But what did you make of that report?
Well, it's not that surprising. Rhode Island is very slow to produce housing. There's a lot of zoning issues. There are a lot of restrictions. There's just getting companies started and operating is very difficult. The licensing, the regulations, all these things. I remember when I was looking for work 20 something years ago, and I was looking into becoming a plumber, and it took Rhode Island, I think, something like twice as long to generate a new master plumber versus Massachusetts. And that's a good example. You pile that up and suddenly you're not able to build houses. And that all does come back to the special interest protecting their labor, protecting their special privileges, their little corner of the state. And so that's what we get. And so now you've got this funnel, and Representative Mike Chippendale, the House Minority Leader, has been making a big deal out of the inefficiencies at RI Housing and how expensive it is as an agency versus other New England states. They create this funnel where all money and privilege has to go through them, and then they distribute that out, and that goes in our zoning, that goes through our affordable housing efforts, it goes through the economy and jobs. So I think it does come down to that special interest demands. And I think one thing it's great for Republicans to point this out, and they should, but we really need to start coming up with a big contrast of here's their policies and what it's doing. Here's what conservatives and Republicans would do instead. I think that's something that's sorely lacking. I mean, even Representative Chippendale's effort is kind of like saying, we want to do this better. We want to do the RI housing thing better. I think we need to start changing changing our talk and talking more about freedom and how we need people to be able to build and expand and want to live here and not be 50th in the state in yet another ranking, or 50th in the country.
Yeah, there's some. I think we both agree. The opponents of it are no one is to me fully threshing out the argument of what we're doing differently than another state that's causing the state to lag behind so much. I mean, we both can probably guess what it is, but I agree. I haven't heard the argument. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't heard anyone explain if we would just change, A, B, and C, that would put us just like this state that's very effective with it. It's funny, Justin, someone sent me a picture. Apparently Brown University is building a new building. It's down kind of, I don't know what we're calling it these days. It used to be the Jewelry District. Then it became the Knowledge District. But it's the area off of Point Street, Chestnut Street, in that area. And of course, I think it's a new building by Brown. And what do they have? The truck. There's a flatbed truck that's circling the work site, and they have the giant rat there. And so then you can guess that, oh, okay, so they're doing the job and they're not using the union labor that they're demanding. So then it just becomes a matter of they send people down to, harass them and terrorize them and just try to give them a hard time. And, I only know that because someone sent me the photo. I don't know that because any elected official, stood down there and said, hey, this should not be going on. And they should not be doing this type of thing. But that's where we are. Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz has found. What do you have for us this week, Justin?
Well, just a quick sidebar. Mark Comtois writes for Anchor Rising, and he took a look at the recent Revolutionary War documentary that came out, and he points out it's a lot of what you would expect. There's some good information, but a lot of loyalist sympathies, and I think that's a very interesting thing to see around here, and it ties in with kind of our reactionary Democrats. A lot of left-wingers have suddenly become old school loyalists against the revolution of the United States, and we see that in a lot of anti-Trumpism. So that's a post that's definitely worth checking out.
All right, folks, check it out on anchorrising.com. He is Justin Katz, our segment Politics This Week. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, folks, there it is. And again, he is terrific. Check out his work. It's anchorrising.com. I do want to mention, I think it's just like a spell check thing where they do it automatically. It is Rodgers, not the D. I think that's just like an automatic typo. We'll fix that. I do want to talk about the situation at Rodgers, folks, but this portion of our program, and it's brought to you by ServPro. ServPro of Providence. Call them today at 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. ServPro Providence. Now, especially if you have a fire, call Serve Providence today. And if you have a fire, let's just say you have a fire, and there's a very chance if you have a fire that then as they're putting out the fire, there's going to be an endless amount of water damage or smoke damage. And then if you have a lot of water, you could have mold. ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. When disaster strikes, fast, thorough, professional, ServPro of Providence. Now, in regards to the Rodgers situation, I understand, and there's someone posting a comment, and that I am seeing that this is the narrative that people that are involved and they're trying to push forward. A problem that I have with that narrative is, and I'm seeing it up there, and I am like other people, I'm anxious for more of the story to get out. But what I am seeing is, and it's coming from the students involved, that they're trying to justify why they were beating this special needs student individual. And a couple things about this, and this is listen, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I get that. But if you want to throw that out there, you at least have to acknowledge that whether you realize it or not, you're running a passive aggressive, but you're running a soft defense for the individuals involved. Because I have gotten those messages, and they're trying to say, and I heard from a mother of one of the football players trying to say it was justified. It was justified beating him. And I think for those that are trying to throw that out there, and I just want to caution people, if you put it out there, whether you like it or not, you are trying to justify what happened. And I think the way, I can't speak for everyone, but I think the way most people look at this and these disturbing videos is that there's no excuse for what happened. Nothing equates that. Some of the allegations that we're hearing are even more disturbing. So now, as I said, we're going to go, a little more long form on it tonight, but it's a big story. You've had two 16-year-olds arrested, and Newport police have charged them with, by the way, this particular crime is even more serious because there are penalties if in fact you do something like this to a special needs individual, whether it be male or female. But the initial arrest from Newport police was on Friday. Police arrested 16-year-old male Rodgers high school student. It was determined the suspect assaulted the victim on two separate occasions. What does that tell us? It was not the first time. Now, keep in mind, as one parent told me, these kids have been involved with the football program since August. Because of pre-camp or whatever training, do the math. August, September, October, November. This is 4 months that these kids are together. And it's not as if it was just, like a 6-week. A lot of times certain sports are not as intensive as football might be. So that was the initial arrest. Now the charges, the individual charged 2 counts, felony assault on a person with severe impairments. I want to echo that and emphasize again, we're not just talking about assaulted, but it's different. Someone with severe impairments, second arrest. Again, a second 16-year-old male, Rodgers High School, charged with assault against the same victim. Now, there's some different facets to this that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to touch on that because number one, I think I have a little more information. And I want to be very clear. There are people that are trying to put it out that it was justified, that what they were doing was justified. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but you can see some of it in the comments. And you know what? I'm not going to delete the comments. Let the person own it. You're an adult. You want to put a comment. You want to suggest it was justified. And they're trying to come up now with a reason. I've heard all of that. Oh, one of the kids, he has a 14-year-old sister and, blah, blah, blah. So therefore they were justified doing it to him. And don't say, well, I didn't mean it like, that's exactly what you mean. That's exactly what you mean. So don't, oh, I'm not saying it was justified. That's exactly what you're implying, that it was justified. Let me stay on schedule. Folks, this portion of our program, the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking for J. Perry Paving. Call them. Only a couple weeks left. Get your driveway paved. 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730. Letter J. J. Perry Paving. High quality, fair pricing, exceptional service. They specialize in get your driveway paved. And remember, no one has a better package for veterans than J. Perry Paving. Call them today, 401-732-1730, 401-732-1730 for J. Perry Paving. Now, I want to mention, and I posted this, and I'm not going to get into what some of the comments are, You can go to the page and see for yourself. Some of these people, oh, all you people acting like you were angels when you were teenagers. I am saying it is time. I believe the students involved should be names published and mugshots published. I believe we need changes at the Rhode Island State House. And I believe Rhode Island should start to enact laws. 16, 17-year-old, depending on the crime, 15-year-old. I believe their mugshots should be published and their names should be published. I've had it, like many of you. This is ridiculous. They're taking advantage, whatever the way it used to be in the past. It's not serving the greater good. They should be identified. I don't know if they're going to be tried as adults. I don't know if they're going to be tried as adults. I do know there are some people that are trying to justify it. And I hear it. And that happens, by the way, every story. They try to float it out. And it's like trial balloons. And they'll post, because I don't respond to everything. I can't. I refuse to. But we saw it with the Pontiganset gym teacher. The people that try to run a soft defense for her, for the grown married woman engaging in relations with whatever he was, a student. And you see some people try to say, well, he was fine with it. As if a 16 or 17-year-old boy should be deciding that with the 42-year-old female gym teacher. But people try that. With this, they're trying to say, well, the kid had it coming to him. The special needs kid had it coming to him. Now, a couple things. I don't know if that's going to happen. But there's some obvious things here that certainly need to be answered. Let me address a couple of them in no particular order. First of all, the coaches. I have heard at least one of the coaches knew about this, that this was going on. I understand someone, because I hear from people, I know so-and-so, I'm not going to give out names. Listen, he's just there to coach. And the coach will say, listen, I'm just there to do the X and O's. I don't get involved with this locker room. Well, too bad. Well, you have to. Because look what's going on in the locker room. Look what's going on in the locker room. Maybe you envision you're like Mike Vrabel, but you have chaos breaking out in your locker room, and you clearly don't have leaders on the team that are putting a halt to it. So coaches, if all this business, well, I just do the X and O's out on the field. I'm only there to teach blocking and tackling. Well, unfortunately, you have to also be part babysitter because of the stuff going on. For some of the people that are trying to rationalize that, well, the special needs student had it coming to him, look at the mentality and you wonder where it comes from. And I also want to touch on, I thought it was interesting. I'm going to try to have her on tonight. She's a mother. Her son, she has two sons. One just graduated from Rodgers. Another one, I think, is going to graduate. Still a student in the school. But this culture, there's something wrong with the public schools. Now, Newport, whether people realize it or not, it's actually, Newport is very rich and poor. The city of Newport itself, there's very little to no middle class. You have the very wealthy that keep the island, afloat. And then you have the very poor. Keep in mind also, Newport, the Navy left Newport in 1974. I've spent a lot of time in Newport. You meet these people where their family was from the South. They had a relative who was in the Navy. The Navy left. They didn't leave Newport. So you have a lot of people from the South. You have a lot of people from all over. And they just ended up there. And they're not originally from Rhode Island. But what this mother was telling me was these, and I've been hearing it for a while now, these progressive attitudes of the teachers. And I want to be very clear. I received a filthy message I'm not going to share. But, old man, it's 20 2025 as though there's something wrong, with me in this. And you don't understand Black culture. And, nothing, it's all part of it. It's Rodgers tradition, fun and games and that type of thing. And what they do in the locker room. And I don't, when you have, I want to go back to these progressives. You're there. There's a problem in the public schools because I don't think they realize why they're there. They're there to teach the subjects. You have teachers. You know what's funny is the No Kings rally was best described. The No Kings protest that they just had, the bulk of people attending were white women, slightly obese, in their 40s and 50s. That was the majority of the crowd of these No Kings protests. And I'm hearing from these parents at Rodgers and other schools, but Rodgers, they almost fit the profile. Progressive, Elizabeth Warren fans, voted for Harris, hate Trump, white progressive women, they drive the Prius, they went to the No Kings rally, but they're constantly preaching to these young kids. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to experiment with other boys sexually. Yet, if you're a teacher, I understand that you want everyone accepted. And I agree with that. And I understand you want to set the boundaries. Listen, it's 2025, right? As I said in Seinfeld, not that there's anything wrong with it. But why is that always the mantra? And why are you saying this to a lot of Rodgers are young minorities? And you have a lot of Black students at Rodgers. You have a lot of people of color in Newport. So, but why is that the mantra? Why are these Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris voters, progressives, why do they keep preaching that? It's okay to experiment. I don't think a teacher should be encouraging any of the young people to be experimenting sexually. It's okay if you want to experiment with some of the other boys. Why are you even teaching that? Why are you telling them that? Are they trying to, and the mother that I was communicating with said they're trying to foster an attitude that, okay, if you have a young student who is gay, I understand you're trying to preach an attitude that they should be accepted. And listen, I agree, they should not be bullied. Of course they should not be bullied. No one should be bullied, whether it be for religious beliefs or preferences. But when you start to encourage all these young males, it's okay to experiment. It's okay to have some activity with some of the other boys. I think you're kind of opening Pandora's box a little bit. The football players, I don't think it's that complicated. They should be going to their classes, and then after class, you go to the locker room, you put on your equipment, you go out, you have fun, you have a good practice, you come in from that, and quickly shower, change, and you're off on your way home to have dinner, and then hopefully maybe do some homework. But what has been going on in the room, maybe it is a reflection on, there's a lot of things. Why are special needs students in the locker room? Why are there videos? And I want to be cautious right now because we are on the radio and I want to be sensitive with language. And you got to remember a 15 or 16-year-old boy, if they get into a certain gyrating motion, it could result in something, so to speak. And then apparently, allegedly, accusations that they were utilizing some of the special needs students, male students, for this. So, number one, why are the coaches allowing special needs students in the locker room? before and after practice or before and after games? Why is that going on? Number one. Number two, I want to be very cautious about this. The video is very disturbing. Not only is the special needs student being whipped, but he's also on his knees, and the other student who's whipping him is partly undressed with no shirt on. So, I mean, do we really have to? I don't think we need to get graphic on what exactly was going on. So I'll say this, at Rodgers High School, it does not even, number one, it certainly doesn't sound like they're focusing. I think in the school, they should focus on basic reading. They should focus on basic writing. They should focus on basic math. The test scores out of the public schools in Newport are atrocious. The test scores out of Rodgers are horrific, with the, I mean, in the 90 percentile. So my suggestion be, and I get the progressives, they feel, oh, we want to preach, it's okay to experiment. I think when you're saying that to 15 and 16-year-old boys and girls, I don't think it's your place. I don't think that's your place. I don't think that's why that's not your, that's not your obligation. That's not part of, where does that fall in? And by the way, obviously the teacher union is very strong. Look at what just is happening in Barrington. When you go down that path, and progressives love that. Progressives love that, the teachers unions. Do you know there's a charter school in Providence? And what happened? They allowed the teachers to become unionized. And what's happening today? There's a strike. Anything that is good is then destroyed. But the coaches, I just want to be on the field doing the X and O's. I want to practice the kickoff return and plays and blocking and tackling. Well, someone's got to be in charge of the locker room. Someone's got to be in charge where these things are happening. If you have people in there being bullied or encouraged to pleasure themselves in front of the team, as this mother described for me, that's a problem. I get it. I get it. You want to just be, Mike Vrabel doesn't have to worry about that stuff. He's also the coach of the New England Patriots. And you're a high school football coach, or you're an assistant coach, or you're the JV coach. But that's not what it's supposed to be about. And so running this soft defense, well, the special needs kid had it coming. He sent some pictures to people, and they were just trying to get him in line and teach him. Why are they? I don't understand any of it. I don't. And you're right. If people want to say, to me, you just don't understand what it's like in a high school in 2025. And then apparently I don't. I went to Bishop Hendricken. I don't remember this type of stuff. I was in the locker room. I played on different teams. So if someone says, you just don't understand, youth, black culture. Again, guilty. I don't. I didn't know that was part of it. I mean, you hear these things go on in prison. I didn't know that they were going on in a locker room. So I don't get that. And for those that are trying to say, no, the special needs kid, he deserved it. And I'm lost on that. I don't understand that. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by, let's talk about something wholesome. Kids Club on the Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, they now have a sister location in Warwick, but perfect for birthday party venue, before and after school care, preschool, half and full day programs, preschool children 3 through 5. They provide transportation. So whether it's before school, after school, ages 5 through 12, or preschool, Kids Club on the Pike. They're right on Plainfield Pike, right on the Cranston-Johnson line off of 295. It's Kids Club on the Pike. Look for them on social media. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. I mean, am I interested in the story? Yes. If people want to start arguing, you don't understand the way it is, you don't understand the culture, I don't accept this thing racist. Racist. I don't even know. I don't even think that should come into play. I don't know. I don't know who's involved. Put it that way. I don't know who's involved. So you can't say racist. I can't stand when they go to the racist mat. They do that with ICE. You feel that ICE was right. They deported an illegal from Syria who was hiding in Pawtucket. And people's, you're racist for why should he stay? A child molester hiding in Pawtucket was deported by Boston ICE. And supposedly, I'm a racist because I think that was the right move. Much like that, the guy from Liberia, he was supposed to be deported in 2009. They caught up to him in Warren. Kathy Gregg of the Providence Journal, he has not been arrested in Rhode Island since 2012. Why was he getting arrested in Rhode Island? Why is he in Rhode Island? He was supposed to be deported back to Liberia. He has numerous felony criminal charges. You know why ICE got involved? Is because he shouldn't even be here in the first place. Oh, you're racist for supporting ICE. I mean, that part I already know. And for those of you who watch Road Patrol, that started this year. I'm out at something and they start yelling out, you're racist, like that type of thing. What I'm saying is I don't accept it. I don't accept that if you support the work of ICE, it makes you a racist. It makes it that you support another law enforcement agency to me, much like the FBI, IRS, ATF, or Homeland Security, or a local police or state police. Why they are singled out, I don't understand. But if someone wants to say, well, you just don't understand the culture, then I guess I don't. But that sure sounds like sexual assault to me. It sure sounds like sexual assault to me. Now, if they want to say it's all into the fun of the locker room and you don't realize and it's team building and this other foolishness, I don't think that. And I want to come back to if someone says, because I have kinds of different messages, you have the progressive parents. You don't realize, a lot of these teachers, they're doing these kids a favor by enlightening them that they'd be probably happier as another gender. I'm going to come back to that. I don't think it's their place. And I mean that sincerely. No, I don't think. If you are a public school teacher, I don't think you should be discussing and trying to tell a young person, an unhappy 13-year-old boy, that you'd be much happier as a girl, or telling a 13-year-old girl, you'd be much happier as a boy. I can help you. We don't have to tell your parents. I don't think that should be going on. And I know they come back with, oh, so you're happy these kids are depressed. I didn't say I'm happy that they're depressed. I'm saying I'm not convinced that that's the solution, number one. And number two, I don't think that's your place. Much like, we talked about the story in Smithfield, where a bunch of the football players are brought into a room. Suddenly there's these women from the outside, and they start talking about their grandparents or whoever, someone survived the Holocaust. Then they're writing down their names of the players, and then they're handing out assignments. I don't think that should be going on. You don't have the permission from the parents to do that. Like, what are these people talking about? I admit, initially with Smithfield, I was mortified when I heard. And then the more we've learned about it, that superintendent should be fired. The principal should be fired. Now, as far as Rodgers and the football team, I agree with, let's let the Newport police conduct their investigation, but there's clearly something wrong at the high school. And the progressives, you don't understand, and whatever defense that kid had it coming to him. A special needs student had it coming to him, that he was whipped in that fashion. The one on his knees as a kid, practically naked, standing over him in the locker room. What exactly? A football locker room should not, that's like the scene in Airplane, right? Where the pilot gets, hey, Bobby, you ever seen movies with Turkish prisons? It shouldn't be like that. A boys' high school locker room should not rival, Caligula, or like, what are you talking about? And for some of the progressives, and one of them, she's going to run. She's going to run, I think, for attorney general. This whole notion, it's very healthy for young people to be experimenting with their sexuality. At whose expense? The part that they're leaving out is the consensual part. Because the videos that I'm seeing and the stories I'm hearing, it certainly doesn't sound consensual. If you have a special needs student and kids are going up to them and gyrating into them until they, reach a certain point where then a certain action happens, that sounds non-consensual to me. And then maybe now the progressives, the No Kings protesters, the McKee supporters, the Harris voters, all the white progressive heavyset women in Newport, maybe now they can say, well, I meant consensually they should be experimenting. I'm gonna say, one, obviously a lot of these young men can't discern the difference. And number two, I'm going to go back to what I said. It is not your place as a teacher to be encouraging young men or women that it's perfectly healthy to experiment. Like that is not your role. That I'm just trying, I'm trying to live and do them, but you're not doing a favor. If you tell young girls that are on, pick a team, it's perfectly normal. You want to experiment with that. That is not your role. How is that helping them with reading, writing, and arithmetic? That is not your place. You're creating, obviously, a lot of confused young men. And for people, oh, you're racist. You don't understand the culture. You're right. I don't. Because no, I don't think that should be going on. The whole system sounds broken. What about performing? How about training, working hard, practicing, team building? That should be the focal point. Not, the locker room can be a place of discovery. That is the progressive mindset. And these people are abusing it, much the way you watch 1 week from today in Barrington. That guy's going to walk into the school and get a standing ovation from all the teachers. He showed them. He celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and we showed them, and we're bringing him back. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Now, later tonight, probably around 7, we're going to be live. And we're going to talk about Rodgers. And we are going to interview the candidate. He's going to run for mayor of Providence. In the meantime, enjoy this Monday.